Welcome, everybody. We're going to wait just another minute or two to get started, but hopefully everyone can hear me and isn't having any issues hearing or seeing the slides. This is one of our, in a series of, a series of webinars that we're doing on how to create a sustainable team. So today I'm going to be talking about how you create a mission and a vision for your team and how you can use those concepts to help guide the work that your team does. So, in the interest of time, we will go ahead and get started. So my name is Kim Chelf. I am a health educator here at Hamilton County Public Health. And today, as I said, we're going to talk about creating a mission and a vision for your team and how you can use that mission statement and that vision statement in order to guide the work that your team does. Get the slides to work. So this is kind of just the outline. We're going to go through mission statements first. They're kind of the first step. Then we're going to talk about vision statements, and then we're going to talk about why it's important that your team has a mission and a vision, and kind of how those two things can work together to help keep your team focused and on track. So we'll start off with mission statements. So mission statements are something that I think we're all somewhat familiar with if you do any work and deal with any sort of nonprofit or business. But they're really just a statement that sort of explains why your team exists, who your team serves, and how it serves those folks. So it's really a foundation for your work. It can kind of be thought of as sort of a way to sum up the essence of your organization or your team and a way to guide your decision-making process. And hopefully, if you have a good mission statement, it makes people want to learn more about your team. So, like I said, it should hit on those 3 points: why your team or organization exists, who that team or organization serves, and how it serves them. And it really should be kind of clear and succinct. Most mission statements aren't going to be super long. We're not looking for a paragraph. We're really just looking for a sentence, maybe 2 sentences. But you also want to avoid being kind of vague and ambiguous. So, you don't want super kind of vague statements. We'll talk about that in a second. But you also don't want something that's just really long and hard to remember. The best ones are easy for people to remember, and also very clear. Another important point is that you want to make sure that you don't use sort of jargon or terms that a layperson might not understand. So sometimes we get so caught up in our work or our world that we don't realize we're kind of almost speaking our own language. It happens a lot in public health. It happens a lot in a lot of other industries as well. And so you want to make sure that you're not using terminology, jargon, acronyms that people may not know. So this is a good example down here from the Versus Cancer Foundation. So their mission statement is: the Versus Cancer Foundation is a nonprofit organization dedicated to saving kids' lives by empowering athletes and communities to fund life-saving childhood cancer efforts. Not super long, lays out why the team exists. So they want to save kids' lives, who they serve. So they're going to serve kids with cancer, and how it serves them. So empowering athletes and communities to fund life-saving childhood cancer efforts. It's a really good example of a mission statement. This is another one. This is actually our mission statement here at Hamilton County Public Health. So our mission statement is: Hamilton County Public Health educates, serves, and protects our community for a healthier future. So the why, we're looking for a healthier future. The who, it's our community, and the how, we're educating, serving, and protecting. Again, it's relatively short. It's pretty clear. It states what we're going to do, and tries to kind of avoid being super vague. So it might seem kind of easy to just sort of create one of these, just write it up, but there actually is a process that can kind of help you do this in a very effective way. Because the most effective mission statement is going to be one that your entire team agrees on. So, in order to develop a mission statement, the first thing you're going to need to do is get your team together. So it can be your whole team, it could be a subset of your team, but you want this to really be a group process. And then you're going to break into small groups. So depending on how many people you have, this might change. But you want small groups of about 3 to 5 people. So it might be a couple, it might be 3 small groups. It just kind of depends on how many people you have there. And you want to try to make the groups as diverse as possible. So this means that, you want each group to kind of be a good mix of folks. You don't want one group to be all older adults and one group to be all youth. You really want to kind of try to mix it up so you have diversity within each small group. And then what you want to do is have each small group answer the question, what does it look like when we're doing our best work? Or alternatively, what would it look like when we're doing our best work, kind of depending on where your team's at. And so you want them to kind of talk about this in their small groups, give them a short amount of time, maybe 5 to 7 minutes, and then write their answer down on a note card or a piece of paper, something like that. So you want one idea per group, but you really want them to, as a group, come together and talk about what does it look like if our team is doing its very best work? What is that ideal situation? Because that's what we're trying to get to, right? The mission statement is a statement of what is your group's goal if you're doing your work to the best of your ability. So then you're going to take those note cards or pieces of paper with the ideas from your small groups, and what you want to do is we're going to kind of break those down. So you're going to circle in that statement every time you mention a specific person or a place. So it could be a person or group of people, something like community residents, the Hispanic population, children, seniors, African Americans, school kids, whatever that looks like, a specific group of people, or a specific place. And this could be something like our community, the church campus, Central Park, the name of your community, whatever that looks like. And these are what we're going to kind of think of as your cause. These are the folks or the places that you're trying to help. So once you've circled every time you mention a specific person or place, then what you're going to want to do is look through that statement again and draw a square around every mention of your team making a difference and or taking some kind of action. So these are going to be the actions of your team. It could be things like increasing physical activity, helping people make better decisions, reducing smoking, anything like that, encouraging healthy eating, whatever that goal for your team is, you're going to draw a square around those things. And finally, we're going to search for the impact of your team or the impact that you hope your team has. And so this is where we're going to underline every change for the better or result of your team's actions. So this might be things like a healthier community, lower diabetes rates, cleaner environment, cleaner air, different things like that, lower poverty levels. So whatever kind of result of your actions that you might have. And then the other thing that is important to note is it's okay if your circles, squares, and underlines overlap, because they probably will. There's going to be things that do overlap. So this is an example of a mission statement around a group that focuses on clean water, or as a kind of that statement or idea. So you can see that they have circled the places. So they circled Rwanda, they circled Bagina's family, they circled children. Then they drew a square around helped Begina's family easily get clean water, so that's one of the actions. So one of the times of making a difference. And adults, they've underlined, so allow the 4 children to focus on schoolwork instead of spending days sick from bad water and nights walking hours to carry back water from the dirty river. So you can see there's some overlap, but they definitely have some circles, some squares, and some underlines, which is what we're kind of looking for. And so then what we're going to do is you want to kind of create a chart with all of these things from all of the groups. So you're going to kind of create a grid. You can do this on chart paper, you can do it on a chalkboard or a whiteboard. It kind of depends on what type of room you're in and what kind of resources you have. But I would recommend doing this rather large so people can see it, and then using maybe Post-it notes as we kind of sort items into these categories, and that way you can kind of move them around in a second because we're going to group them together. So you're going to create the grid, and you're going to have our cause, which is that who, what, where, and that's going to be where your circled items are going to go. You're going to have our actions, that's where your squared items are going to go, and then you're going to have our impact, and that's where those underlined items are going to go. And so you're going to kind of sort the items from each group into the grid. So have each small group share their story with the whole, and then add those items to the chart. This is why I said it's important if you do it on Post-it notes, because it's a lot easier to kind of move them around. Because once you've added all of the items from every group to your chart, then you're going to kind of group like items into big idea categories. So you'll probably notice that there's some, hopefully anyway, some overlap in some of your items and ideas, that things are like themes are starting to emerge. And so you want to kind of put those things together, because what we're going to do is create big idea categories. And so that may look a little something like this. It may be kind of hard to see, but what you can see is that under their causes, they had some that they grouped together as developing areas. So Bangladesh, Rwanda, Liberia, developing areas, rural communities. They also have families and communities, so women, children, families, Begina, and then local economies, so farmers, business owners, fishermen. So they kind of grouped those like things together in developing areas, families and communities, and local economies. Under actions, they got some themes of clean water and then sanitation education, were their 2 kind of big themes or ideas. And then under impact, they had health, stronger communities, security, and opportunity. And so you may have some repeats. There may be things that come up more than once. You may have some groups that have totally unique things, and those are all okay. But the idea is to kind of see if you can group some things together. So obviously yours may not be developing areas, but it might be specific areas of your community or specific groups within your community. So you may find that, one of your big ideas is the Hispanic population or the African American population or people living in poverty. Could be children or young people, depending on what kind of your focus is. And your actions may definitely, almost certainly be different than these. And then, again, the impacts is just really going to depend on what your team is focusing on. But the idea is that as you group these things, the big themes will start to emerge. So once you've kind of got your chart made and everything's kind of grouped, you want to ask people to break back into their small groups and use those big ideas to craft a mission statement. So each statement should use or have a cause, an action, and an impact. You don't have to state each of the big ideas specifically or explicitly, but they should all kind of be wrapped up in that statement. You want to try to keep them short, so you want to have the groups try to keep them short. Really, the best mission statements have less than 15 words, which can be really challenging, especially at this point. But the shorter you can keep them, the better. And don't worry too much about word choice at this point. Word choice is one of the easiest things to kind of fine-tune, and so you don't want to spend a lot of time on it now. You want to just kind of get the ideas there, and then you can fine-tune the words later. But it's important to remember, try to make them specific. So if you make a statement and you realize that no one would probably disagree with that statement, you probably need to be more specific. So for example, if your mission statement is, we're going to make the world a better place, it's really not specific enough. Most people are not going to disagree with that we should make the idea that we should make the world a better place. But if you can be a little more specific, it'll really help fine-tune those ideas of what your team is trying to accomplish. So once each group has sort of created a mission statement, you want to come back together as a full team, and you're going to have each group share the mission statement that they developed with the entire team. Going back to our example, you can see these are the 3 mission statements that their 3 small groups kind of developed. So they have, we help families in developing areas stay healthy by providing clean water and education, helping build safe, strong communities in the developing world through safe drinking water, and through clean water, we promote security in communities and rural economies. Once everybody has shared their ideas and their sort of draft mission statement, you can write them down on the whiteboard or on the chart paper again so everybody can kind of see. And you want to try to identify each of the big ideas in each statement. So you can see here they've kind of color-coded them. So the green words are for their cause, that who, what, where. The orange words are the actions, so providing clean water and education, safe drinking water, clean water. And then the blue words are their impacts, so the changes that they want to see. And you don't have to state the big ideas specifically. Like I said before, they can be kind of implied. So, for example, they have under their impacts, they talked about health, stronger communities, security, and opportunity. And really, when you look at these mission statements, they just talk about stay healthy, safe, strong communities, security and opportunities in rural economies. So they kind of touch on a lot of those things, but they're not all stated explicitly. And then you're going to use the statements that you have. And so you might be picking the one that you like the best, or maybe combining elements from multiple mission statements. But you want to try to develop one really strong mission statement for the team from the examples that you have or the drafts that you have. And this is really where you're going to have to work as a group, and there might be discussion. You may have people that feel really strongly about one part of the mission statement, and you're going to have to kind of work through disagreements. But it's also a really valuable process of getting ideas, letting people kind of advocate for the points that they think are really important. Because different people are going to have different views of what the most important functions of your team are. So hopefully you will come up with a really strong mission statement kind of at the end. And so once you have what you think is a pretty good mission statement drafted up from all these kind of examples, you want to ask a volunteer to explain to the rest of the group why does it matter and how you can achieve that mission as a group. And if you can't answer those 2 questions, you're going to need to go back and work on your mission statement a little bit more. But hopefully at the end of this process, you'll have a really nice, concise, succinct mission statement that will help you sort of tell your community and tell your friends and your neighbors all about what your team is trying to do and what you're trying to accomplish. And it's really an important tool to help guide your team in the work that your team is doing, which we're going to talk a little bit more about later. So that's kind of mission statements. And like I said, mission statements are this, what is the kind of, I won't say goal, but how is your team going to achieve its goals, right? What are you trying to do in order to get to where you want to go? The other piece to this are vision statements. So vision statements really work hand in hand with mission statements. Vision statements explain the overall goal of your team, kind of looking into the future. So the mission statement outlines the present plan to realize your vision. So the mission statement is more about where you are, and the vision statement is more about where you're trying to go. So it should be kind of inspirational. In 5 or 10 years, if you've done your work really well, where should everything be? And generally, this is a one-sentence statement. Again, it should be fairly short, clear, and concise, but it should also be inspirational and have a long-term desired change. And you want it to be memorable and something that people can remember and communicate to others pretty easily, because it's also an important tool in explaining what your group is doing and where you're trying to go. So most effective vision statements are short. Again, for mission statements, we said they should try to be less than 15 words. For vision statements, they give you a few extra words, but they still want them to be less than 25 words. Not very long. And you can see this is a good example. This is from Habitat for Humanity. So their vision is a world where everyone has a decent place to live. Short, sweet, to the point, something that's really easy to communicate to others, but also gets across what they're trying to do. That's what they believe. That's where they're trying to go. Again, this is the vision statement that we have here at the health department. Our vision is healthy choices, healthy lives, healthy communities. That's what we're trying to achieve, and so that's our vision for our communities. And it really works hand in hand with our mission statement. So if you remember the mission statement of educate, serves, and protect our communities for a healthier future, and hopefully if we do a good job with that educating, serving, and protecting, then we'll end up with healthy choices, healthy lives, healthy communities. So that's kind of how the two work together. If you want to think about it as the mission statement is your roadmap or your directions or your GPS, and the vision statement is your destination or where you're trying to go. So how do you create a vision statement? Well, the first thing you're going to want to do is create your mission statement, because the mission statement is that roadmap, and you have to know kind of the direction that you're heading before you can picture that ultimate destination. So always start with the mission statement, get that developed, make it really strong, and then you can move on to the vision statement. Again, this should be a group process, so then you're going to want to assemble your team. It can be a whole team, again, it can be a subset of your team, but the group of people that are going to really help you work on this process. And then I want you to ask that team to imagine the future in 3 to 5 years as they want it to be in terms of what your team is trying to achieve. So if your team does the work that you intend to do, what does the world or your community look like? What changes have happened? What makes the future ideal? What has been helped or changed? How has your team helped make those changes happen? Who have they helped? Sometimes it helps if you think about what would you tell a reporter doing a story on your team in that future. You had to sit down with a reporter and they were asking questions for an article in the newspaper. What would you tell them about the work that you had done? What would your team be most proud of? So it's really kind of this visioning, thinking about this, in a perfect world, what does everything look like for your team and your community? And then you want people, as they're kind of thinking about this perfect future, to write it down. Write it down on a piece of paper so that it's written out. Once people have had some time to kind of think about this future, and they've written down their idea for their, their vision for this perfect future. You want them to kind of pair off, and you're going to have each person share with their partner what their vision is. And this is a good time for that partner to ask any sort of clarifying questions. So if there's something they don't understand, if there's something that seems a little vague, they could ask questions, and clarify any points. And so both partners will get to share and ask questions and clarify. So you want to give a decent amount of time for this. And then you want each pair to come up with about 10 sort of items or things that they think are important from their two visions to bring forward to the whole group. So what items were most important in their vision of the future? Where do they think the group should go? What are the key pieces that they want to pull out after their discussion and clarifying and sharing that they want to bring forward to the whole group? It doesn't have to be 10 things. I think the idea was, you don't want it to be a huge list, but you also don't want it to just be one or two. Get them to really think about what's important. What are those most important pieces? And then you're going to have the pairs, everybody kind of come back together and share their list of items with the entire team. And this is another place where you can use Post-it notes or index cards to post the items that are being shared so that everybody can see. So this is a good time. You're going to want to write one item per Post-it or one item per note card and kind of maybe tape them up to a wall or take them to a whiteboard so that everybody can see. Because, again, we're going to kind of move these around and group them. So it's really handy to be able to do that. So like I said, you're going to group the items together into categories. So you might notice, again, some themes. Maybe it's specific people, maybe it's specific things, lowering diabetes, or people are more active, or they're eating more fruits and vegetables, whatever it is, you're going to hopefully start to notice some themes emerging, and so kind of group those like items together. And certainly if there's common items that a lot of people have brought up, you want to make note of that. Then as a group, you want to kind of come to a consensus what some of those top items or categories are. So this could be, again, like the big categories, or it could be specific items. If you had multiple people mention something specific, like parks or playgrounds, then that might be one of the things that you pull out. You say, okay, we had 6 or 7 people talk about better parks or more playgrounds or better sidewalks. That's definitely something we should pull out. Or it could be bigger, broader categories, like more opportunities for people to be physically active, or more opportunities for people to recycle. So once you kind of have the top items or categories selected, and this number may vary kind of depending on how much overlap you have and as a group sort of what the opinions are, you really want to use those top items to develop your vision statement as a group. And so remembering that you want to try to keep it short and concise, but also focused on where the team wants to go and what the ideal future looks like. So this is where you want to end up if your team does its work well. And again, you want to try to keep it under about 25 words. It's not a magical number, but the idea is, enough to get your point across, but not so much that it's hard for people to remember. Because you really want this to be something that folks can remember pretty easily. And it makes it sound simple, but it's really not always that simple to come up with a consensus as a group. It can be kind of challenging. Again, there may have to be lots of discussion amongst group members about why they think certain things are important and why they should be included. And that's good. You want that discussion to take place. You want people to be passionate and sort of advocate for the things that they think are most important. Because that's how you're going to get to a good, strong vision statement for the team. So hopefully, at the end of this process, you'll have a really strong mission statement that's less than 15 words and lays out kind of a roadmap for your team and how it wants to get where it wants to go. and a really strong vision statement that's less than 25 words that kind of shows what that ultimate destination is. Where is your team really trying to get to? What does that ultimate goal or destination look like? And these two things are important because, as we're going to talk about, they really are a roadmap for your team, and they're really important in helping your team decide what projects and things it wants to take on and what it wants to do. So the mission and vision statements establish that long-term direction that and goals that can guide your team's daily operations. They can be a foundation for a team's program, services, communication, organization, culture, lots of things. They're kind of that baseline. You really need it in place so that you know where you're going and what you're doing. Having a clear mission and vision is really helpful as you decide to apply for grants and evaluate whether or not a grant is a good fit for your team. It's also really important to help you communicate with potential new members for your team because it can really help them understand what you're trying to accomplish. And a lot of times I think teams have a hard time recruiting new folks because they're not very specific about what they're trying to do. So it's a great way to help you communicate what your goals are with potential new members, potential community supporters, partner organizations, grant funders, anybody like that. People are drawn to groups with a clear goal or purpose. When you have kind of just a hazy idea of, oh, we want to make our community a better place, a lot of people say that, but how are you going to do it? You have a very specific purpose. I think it shows that you've put some thought into it. You really are being very intentional, and that's the kind of group that people often want to get engaged with. And it's also helpful to keep your team on track and working towards the same goal. A lot of times if you have a team of a lot of people, we've all heard too many cooks in the kitchen, everybody kind of wants to go their own way. Having a mission and vision can help keep everything focused and keep people kind of working together towards the same goal instead of each kind of off doing their own thing. So one of the ways that you can do this is as you start to develop a team that's out there doing work, a lot of times what happens is either new group members will come in, new team members will come in, and they'll have new ideas for what you should be working on or what you should be doing. Or you'll have outside groups come to you and say, hey, we have this really great project that we want you to work with us on. And I see it all the time with the teams that I work with. What happens is, you get these requests from outside groups that say, hey, we're going to do this really cool thing and we want you to help us. How can you help us? Or come help us on this project. And it's easy and very tempting to just say, yeah, we'd love to help you. That sounds great. But you have to remember, your team only has so much time and so many resources. And while it may be a great project and something that's totally worthwhile and would be very beneficial to your team, it may also be something that's kind of outside the scope of what your team wants to do. And that's where that mission and vision can really help you evaluate that. So once you have a mission and vision, you can more easily evaluate potential projects, programs, activities that your team may be asked to lead or participate in. You're not going to be able to do everything all the time. You're going to have to pick and choose different projects and ideas based on availability, resources, volunteers, lots of stuff like that. So if you're asked to join on a project, you can evaluate whether or not that project will help you achieve your vision or if it fits within your mission. So if your mission is creating a community, creating a healthier community where people are more physically active, and someone comes to you with a really great project, but it's more around helping people stop smoking, that doesn't really fit within your mission. So that may not be a project that you need to say yes to. Doesn't mean that it's not a great project or that it's not worthwhile. It just means that it may not be the right use of resources for your team. So, like I said, if a project or an activity doesn't fit within your mission or your vision, you might need to say no, or say we're not the right group, or hey, we're happy to help you publicize this, but we can't really commit a lot of resources to helping you make it happen. Because as a team, you really should only take on projects or activities that fit within your mission and help you achieve your vision, because those are the ultimate goals of what you're trying to do. That being said, it's okay to sometimes change your mission or vision. They may change, and they probably will change a little bit over time, and that's okay. But you shouldn't change them all the time or at the drop of a hat. So one of the things that I see a lot is a community or a team will find a grant that's close to maybe what they want to do, but not quite, and they'll want to go get that grant anyway because it's funding and will have money to do the thing that the grant's requiring them to do, even though it's maybe not quite what their team was focusing on. And you really don't want to be a team that sort of chases the money like that or chases the thing. By the same token, if you have a really passionate new team member come on board and they come to a meeting and they have all these really great ideas of all these great new things that you could do, that's really awesome. But if their ideas don't fit within your mission or your vision, you don't necessarily need to change your mission and vision in order to accommodate that new team member. You might want to. The team may feel that their ideas have some merit and it's something that you do need to do to change direction. But you can also, kind of the same way that people can chase grant money, you can also chase team members. And if you're constantly shifting and changing your mission and your vision and doing all these things, it's really easy to also lose people because they might feel like you never move in one direction for very long and there's never a really clear direction for any amount of time. So you want to stay true to your mission and your vision unless you have a compelling reason to change them. And like I said, there are some. Maybe you discover a new need within your community that your team feels is more important than what you're currently working on. Maybe you feel like you've accomplished a lot and you're ready to kind of move on to sort of the next step in the process. So, if your goal is to, the original goal of your team is to get more people to walk, and after a couple of years that you feel like you've really done a good job and there's a lot more people out walking in your community, maybe the next step is, to build on that and shift from a focus on walking to a focus on all types of physical activity or a focus on healthy eating, something like that. So, you can change. It's not something that's set in stone forever, but you also want to have a really good reason to make that change and not just kind of do it willy-nilly. So again, as you are evaluating potential projects or activities or requests, even grants, you want to kind of ask these three questions. Does this project fit within our mission? Does this project help us achieve our vision? And do we have the capacity to do this work? Because there may also be things that come to you that fit with your mission and your vision, but just require a whole lot more capacity than what you currently have. And it's okay to say no to those things too. Or to say, we're not sure we have the capacity to take this on right now. Is there any way that we can get back to this later, or can you help us find more volunteers, or whatever that capacity issue is. So it could be an issue with people. You may need more manpower. You may need more volunteers. You might need more funding. It may be something that requires some money and you just don't have it in your budget. It could be time. Maybe the time frame is really tight and you don't think it's enough time to get the project done. So there's lots of sort of capacity issues that could come up that could keep you from feeling like you can take on a project as well. So it's just important to remember that it's okay to say no sometimes. It's okay to say this isn't a good fit for us, but we still think it's an important work. And it's okay to say yes. It's okay to, we definitely want our teams to partner with other community organizations and other groups within their communities. It's definitely important, but you also have to make sure that you're not straying too far from what you're trying to do, because it can be really easy to just say yes to everybody, and then you're kind of running in 82 directions at one time, and it makes it really hard to ever feel like you're getting anywhere because you're not staying focused. And that's one of the reasons that we wanted to talk about mission and vision statements. It's something not a lot of our teams have taken the time to do at this point, but we do think it can be helpful, and we do know that especially as a team starts to mature, you've been in the community for a little while, you've gotten your name out there, you've done some publicity, people do start to come to you and say, hey, we have these really great ideas, we think you'd be a good partner. And without a clear mission and a vision, it can be hard to evaluate those requests, because in general, they're all really good projects, really good things. But like I said, you can't do everything all the time for everybody. You have to make some tough choices and, make sure that you're still accomplishing what you want to try to accomplish. So, kind of in summary, looking at mission statements and vision statements, creating them should be a group process. You want both the mission and your vision to be short, simple, and to the point. They're not paragraphs upon paragraphs. They're really very clear, very concise, very focused. And then once you've developed them, you can use them to guide your decisions and your activities of your team. And this is probably one of the more important pieces. Is, thinking again back, asking yourself, does this potential project help us reach our vision? Does it help us work towards our mission? And do we have the capacity to do it? And then, again, it can also help you to communicate your goals to your community and potentially recruit new team members or new people to help you with your work. So they're important. And so I encourage you, if your team doesn't have a clear mission and a vision, to kind of take the time and sit down and develop one. It does take some time, but I think it's a worthwhile use of time. It can really help guide the work that you're trying to do. We wouldn't recommend it if we didn't think it was important, so it's definitely something that we would advocate for your teams, and we're here to help you, to work you through the process. If you need help, if you need ideas, you can search up lots of great example mission and vision statements online, as well as some not so great ones. But I encourage you to look at some mission statements from other organizations, look at some vision statements from other organizations, and see if you can identify which ones are really strong and which ones aren't. That can also help you as you develop your own. You practice kind of looking at some other ones and seeing what other groups have done. So that's all I have for you guys today. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. And if you need to follow up with me, you have my contact information here. More than happy to answer questions. We'll get back to you with any answers to your questions as soon as we can. You can always call or email, and hopefully you found this useful. And please join us for some of our other webinars that are coming up. We have part 2 of our Policy Systems and Environmental Change Strategies series coming up in August, as well as a couple other webinars in this sort of sustainability series, talking about meeting facilitation and grant writing and things like that. So hopefully you'll join us for those. And as always, if you didn't get a chance to join us live on the webinar, you can always find recordings of our webinars on the YouTube channel for We Thrive, which you can find a link to at our website, whichis watchusthrive.org. Thanks, everybody, and have a great afternoon.